All right, good morning, everyone. Go ahead and have a seat. Give me 1 second. All right, we are back on the record. We have our jurors and counsel and parties present. Jurors, I hope you all had a good 4th of July and a good long weekend, and welcome back. You may recall that on Friday we left a little bit early and we had finished with the testimony of, I believe, DCI agent Ryan Herman, and we heard some videos. And we had finished with that witness, and I believe we are now ready for the state's next witness. Mr. Kodiaga, do you have another witness to call?
Thank you, Judge. The state calls DCI agent John Turbett to the stand.
All right. Sir, I'll have you come on up and just take a seat to my far left, if you would. And I'll swear you in once you're seated. And yeah, you can adjust that microphone however you'd like. All right, please raise your right hand. Sir, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. And sir, for the record, can you please provide us with your first name and your last name and spell them for us?
John Turbett, that's Jon, and the last name is Turbett.
All right, Mr. Kodiaga.
Thank you, Judge. So, you've stated your name. How are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Iowa Department of Public Safety, and specifically their Division of Criminal Investigation, or we call it DCI.
How long have you been with this Division of Criminal Safety?
I'm just beginning my 26th year.
Can you tell us your education and training to be in this position?
I have a 4-year Bachelor of Arts degree from Coe College in Political Science, and I have a law degree from the University of Iowa College of Law, and then I attended a 19-week police academy for the state before becoming a sworn officer.
Are you therefore a peace officer in the state of Iowa?
Yes.
We've talked about DCI to this jury, but there's some people who may not know what DCI really is. Can you just briefly tell us what DCI is in relation to other police departments in the state of Iowa?
Yes. We're oftentimes described as a rural law enforcement kind of assistance agency. So local police departments, sheriff's offices are able to call us 24/7, and we would dispatch agents like myself. We're plainclothes detectives, police officers, to assist local agencies with investigations.
As part of an agent at the DCI, have you had experience investigating cases involving homicides or major crimes?
Yes.
What's your experience in that?
Basically, my entire career, I was working death investigations or homicides within my first year. I've continued to do that, probably with increasing frequency. It's now a pretty significant part of what I do.
So were you involved in the investigation of the death of Ryan Cooper that brings us into this courtroom today?
Yes.
How did you become involved in this investigation?
I actually became involved several years after Ryan's murder in 2023. I was asked by my colleagues to assist with a review and then specifically some interviews.
So, fair to say that your specific role in the investigation was more of interviewing witnesses?
Yes, I think all that I did in this case was interviewing the defendant and several witnesses.
You talked about interviewing the defendant. Did you identify, can you identify the person, is that person Karina Cooper?
Yes.
Can you identify her in this courtroom?
Yes.
Will you please go ahead and do that? Your Honor, may the record reflect identification by the gesture of the hand.
The record so reflects.
Now, you talked about in the course of that investigation, you interviewed witnesses, including the defendant, Karina Cooper, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember the day that you conducted the interview with Karina Cooper?
Yes, that was May 4th, 2023.
Do you remember where you conducted the interview?
Yes, I was instructed the interview would take place at 1846 K Avenue in Traer, which I understood to be the scene of the murder as well.
That's the residence where the defendant lived at.
At one time, yes.
When you're doing this interview in 2023, Ryan Cooper was killed in 2021. Is that a fair?
Yes, I believe June 18th, 2021.
And what was the purpose of the interview that you're doing in 2023?
A couple of things were discussed. We wanted to see if the defendant would hold to the same positions that she had several years prior, but also when we reviewed that, we just decided that it would be good to explore for more depth and more detail as well than what we had from a few years prior.
Was your interview, when you take the interview, were you just with the defendant and you at that point?
Was it just the two of us?
Yes.
Yes, ultimately, when I first arrived, Ryan's brother Aaron was also present, and I met the two of them on the driveway. I spent a little bit of time with Aaron. He toured me through the home so I could see where things had occurred. And then shortly after that, I met with the defendant, and it was just she and I at that point.
When you interview the defendant, do you ask her to tell you everything in detail about what happened and the nature of her relationship with Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Part of that is, do you also want to know everything and have a know that nothing should be left out?
Yes, so an extremely important part of the interview would be to explain I'm interested in every detail, even things that people might think are not so important. So I will give examples like every conversation or every meal or even what you ate for a meal or what were you watching on TV. I tell them no details too small because we're very interested of what people are willing to share or not willing to share. We really are just probing for as much detail as possible in those interviews.
Did you ask her to give you an account of what happened that night?
Yes.
Starting from earlier evening, did you ask her to tell you what happened?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
So the evening prior to the murder, she says that the family had gone to a baseball game. They had come home, I believe, around 8 p.m., had pizza. They'd cleaned up and showered, and then she said really from that point on it was an uneventful evening. The children went to bed. She ends up in what they would call the master bedroom, I guess, in bed with two of the children. Ryan goes to sleep in his recliner, as was the norm for some time, and then she said that Cade had slept upstairs.
So you understood there were three children. One was called Cade, who was sleeping upstairs, and she was sleeping with two other children in the bedroom.
Yes, Cade would be the oldest, and she told me he was sleeping upstairs, and then the two younger, Cable and Cortland, would have been sleeping in the bed with her.
As you talked to her, did she report waking up during the night?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what she told you about waking up during the night?
She said the first time she woke, there was no particular reason other than that was the norm. Her body was kind of on that cycle, her bladder, and so she would normally wake between 2 and 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom. And so she said at 3 a.m. she woke simply to go to the bathroom.
Did she tell you what her perception or observations of Ryan Cooper were at 3 a.m. when she went to the bathroom?
Yes, she reported that he was snoring and the TV was on, and so she went to the bathroom and just went back to bed.
So the TV was on and Ryan Cooper was snoring
Yes,
on the recliner.
yes.
Did she tell you what happened next?
She said she did fall back to sleep. She thought it was for a short period of time, and the next time that she woke was not for her bladder, but because she heard a crash.
Did she tell you what her thinking was in regards to the crash that she heard?
Yes, she said that she'd immediately assessed that as the shower caddy falling in the bathroom that was right next to the bedroom, and so she got up immediately to investigate.
How did she describe her getting up immediately to go investigate? What happened in that process?
She said she got out of the bed immediately and then had tripped over, they have a large dog, Ransom. She described him as a 100-pound Rottweiler. He was asleep at the foot of the bed, and so as she got out of the bed and made her way to the bathroom, she had tripped over the dog and then gone on to the bathroom.
Did she tell you if the dog made any noise?
She said the dog had made a woof, a small noise like that.
When she tripped over the dog?
Yes, I think she was saying either when she tripped on it or right before she tripped on it, perhaps as if he'd perceived the noise but didn't get up, or when she tripped on him. Right in that all happened in a short time frame.
According to her account, she tells you she goes to the bathroom.
Yes.
Then what did she tell you she does next?
She sees nothing in the bathroom, so she's there, very quickly, and then she moves on to the kitchen and sees nothing in the kitchen, and she describes, and we talk about for a little bit, her assessment. She looks out through the kitchen window into the well-lit driveway area, and she doesn't see any vehicles or any people in the kitchen or outside in the driveway area.
She describes the driveway as well lit.
Yes.
Once she looks outside the driveway and sees nothing or no vehicles or nobody, what does she do next?
She then moves on to the living room.
What does she say to you that she sees or does when she gets to the living room?
Her first perceptions that she described were the TV is now not on like it was now in sleep mode, so it had gone to sleep. And she goes over and turns on a lamp.
So now the TV is off.
Yes,
And she turns on a lamp in the living room.
yes.
What does she tell you she sees or observes when she turns on the lamp in the living room?
So Ryan was still in his recliner. She turns the lamp on and she says, I see blood, lots of blood.
What does she describe that she does next once she sees lots of blood?
She begins screaming, and then she very quickly moves towards the stairs to go get Cade or intercept Cade as he's coming down the stairs.
So she tells you she runs upstairs to get Cade,
Yes.
who was the son who was sleeping upstairs.
Yes, that would be the oldest son that she said was sleeping upstairs.
Does she tell you the reason why she wants to get Cade?
I believe she says she doesn't want him to see things, so she tries to get him, on the stairs or upstairs and whisk him into the bedroom with the other two children and close him into that area so he doesn't see things or perceive things, I think.
She wants to lock him with the other kids in the bedroom.
Yes, so he can't see what's going on.
Now you talked about the dog, Ransom, and you described him that she told you is like a 100-pound Rottweiler. Did she tell you how the dog typically behaved with strangers?
Yes, my recollection is she described him as this 100-pound Rottweiler. He was interested in people, seemed to be very much a family dog. We were kind of comparing notes. I mentioned my dog. So, for instance, she would talk about him spending time. He would roam the house at night and check in on the various family members, but interested in the family and people as they came.
Did she tell you he will typically bark at strangers?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
That Ransom will typically bark at strangers?
Yes.
You talked about his nighttime behavior. She described as a dog who would roam through the different rooms in the house.
Yes, she said that Ransom would roam. Sometimes he would spend time with Ryan out in the living room and sleep there for a while. He would sometimes go upstairs to see Cade or sleep up there a little bit, and then of course he would sleep in the bedroom as he was that night, she reported, when she tripped on him.
In fact, when you're discussing this, does she tell you about her bedroom door, whether it was open or closed, in relation to Ransom's behavior?
Yeah, I think in her description of the dog and his activities, I asked her, it occurred to me to ask, and I asked about the door, and she said the door was left open that night. It was at least partially open, so this large dog could come and go through the doorway as he pleased, since he was a roamer.
Let's talk about firearms. Did the question of firearms come up in the interview with the defendant?
Yes, I recall we had quite a lengthy conversation about firearms.
Did you and her discuss the firearms that would have been either in the house or either close to the house?
Yes, I think I made a couple of attempts to try to cover this well. I talked about guns she possessed, that Ryan possessed, guns that were in the house, other places they kept guns. Tried to have that conversation several different ways.
Did you learn that there was a firearm in the bedroom that
Yes.
she was sleeping in?
Yes.
Do you remember what firearm it would have been?
She described it as a .380.
So a .380 caliber handgun?
Yes.
Did she talk to you about Ryan teaching her how to use firearms?
She said that the .380 that she said was in the bedroom in a lockbox had been given to her by Ryan, and that they had sat on the couch and he had demonstrated where the safety was, how to take a magazine in and out. But that was the extent of the instruction that he provided her at that time.
As you talked to her about firearms, did you get to learn that she'd used firearms before?
Yes.
She tell you what kind of guns she'd shot before?
She said she'd shot shotgun in high school, but she had never shot a handgun.
When you talk, do you have a discussion about the house, in particular, the entry points in the house, and how visitors will come and go, or how people could come and go in this house?
Yes, having walked the house just shortly before that with Aaron, I tried to make sure I understood how people came and went from the house.
Can you tell the jury what you learned from that conversation?
Yeah, my understanding was, in speaking to Karina, there were only 2 entry points into the house. There was a door in the kitchen that was most typically used, really always used by people to come and go from the house. And there was a door that led to the outside that was in the living room where Ryan had been murdered, but that was rarely used.
In fact, did you learn that only a stranger would use the living room door?
She specifically told me that, and we went over that several times, that the kitchen door was the door that everyone came and went from, and if someone had utilized the living room door, she told me that would be someone who had never been to the house. It would be a stranger.
Did you ask her about her observations of the living room door that night that Ryan was killed?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She told me she thought the door was closed because if it had been open, she would have remembered that.
In fact, when she talks to you about that living room door, does she tell you the proximity or dimensions with it in regards to Ryan's recliner and where Ryan was found dead?
Yes, the recliner she described blocked that door for the most part and made its use difficult. You couldn't really open and close it well. Particularly, I think she said if Ryan was in the chair or someone was in the chair and it was reclined, you know, it made that door even more unusable.
So she stated it would have obstructed, the recliner would have obstructed
Yes.
the door if it were to be opened with Ryan sleeping on it.
Yes.
Let's talk about the sleeping arrangements, especially in regards to Cade. Were you interested in asking her about where Cade slept and what his sleeping arrangements were?
Yes, I was very interested in that.
As you talk to her about this, what does she tell you?
So she told me that on that night, Kate had slept upstairs, and so that began a conversation where I tried to understand if that was normal for Kate to sleep upstairs or abnormal if he normally slept somewhere else.
And what did you learn from her?
So historically, Kate had spent quite a bit of time actually sleeping down in the living room. She said that he would watch movies with his dad and fall asleep on the couch by his dad. And there had been attempts over the years to try and get him to sleep in his own bed upstairs.
Did you ask her about her having a conversation with Cade a couple of days before Ryan's death, where she wanted Cade to go sleep upstairs?
Yes, it was my understanding that there may have been a change in his sleeping arrangement within days of Ryan's murder, so I asked if she had specifically, or if someone had specifically had Cade sleeping in his bedroom as of, within days of that time frame or that week.
May we approach him?
You may. A short recess. We need to take up something, and so I would just remind you of the admonition. This shouldn't take too long, so I just remind you of the admonition from last week, and we'll have you back in here shortly. So, thank you. Agent Turbett, you can go ahead and have a seat somewhere else if you'd like for a minute.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we are back on the record outside the presence of the jury. Oh, yeah, Agent Turbett, I'm sorry, we don't need you to leave. Yeah, sorry. Just mean you didn't need to stay in the witness box. Sorry. You maybe have a seat behind counsel. All right. Anyway, we're outside the presence of the jury. We have counsel and Ms. Cooper here towards the end there, right before we excuse the jury. Ms. Watt asked to approach, and Ms. Watt is objecting to Mr. Turbett's use of the word murder on several occasions. My understanding is the state does not object to that. Is that correct, Mr. Kodiaga?
That's correct, Judge.
All right. So, Agent Turbett, I would just ask and instruct you that when you're referring to Mr. Cooper's death from this point, don't use that word. All right. That satisfy you, Ms. Watt?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any further record you wish to make, Ms. Watt?
No.
Any further record you wish to make, Mr. Kodiaga?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then why don't we all take, since we're at a little break, anybody need anything, or are you guys good to go? You're good? Mr. Ringel, Mr. Kodiaga, are you good? Or do you need a little break? 5 minutes? All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess. All right. Welcome back. Thanks for your patience, members of the jury. So we're back on the record. We have our jurors, counsel, and parties present. And Agent Turbett, if you want to come back on up to the stand, sir. And Agent Turbett, I would just remind you, even though we took a short break, that you're still under oath. And with that, Mr. Kodiaga, you may resume your direct examination.
Thank you, Judge. You're talking about discussions that she had with you about Cade sleeping upstairs in the days leading to Ryan's killing, correct?
Yes.
And at some point in your questioning, did you ask her if there was a conversation that she would have had with Cade about going to sleep upstairs?
Yes.
During that conversation, did she tell you that she probably could have had that conversation and told him to go sleep upstairs?
At one point she said she probably did, and then she said, yeah, it was likely that that had happened.
Do you discuss her marital relationship with Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Is that an important part of your discussions as an investigator?
Yes.
What does she describe her marriage with Ryan Cooper as being?
Fairly typical question in an interview like this. I ask a person to rate their marriage on a scale of 1 to 10, and I go on to describe that a 1 would be about as bad as it could be, and I told her a 10 would be an excellent marriage. How would you rate you and Ryan's marriage? And she said, no marriage is a 10, so took that off the table, but she said her and Ryan's marriage was at least an 8. It was, they were a great team, and it was a good marriage.
She described herself as a pretty lucky woman.
Yes, she said she was lucky to have married Ryan, and that they were good friends and a good team together several times.
Does she talk about, do you talk about whether there were any arguments or problems in the marriage that she described as an 8 out of 10?
Yes.
Does she tell you what sources of arguments were?
Yes.
What does she say?
She says they tease back and forth, and some people could construe that as, you know, going a little too far. But other than that, she says really the only place of contention or arguing there could be some talk about finances sometimes.
Let's talk about that. In terms of their finances, does she tell you the nature of their finances in the farm that they lived in?
Yes, I understood the overall condition of finances with this farm and where they live to be good, that they live in I think it was a rent-free or a very agreeable kind of situation there. And so
when she says they lived rent-free, in reference to that, is she talking in relation to the Cooper family farm owning much of the property?
That's my understanding. She describes it as that Cooper Farms owns a lot of this land and this buildings, and they're able to live in that place.
Do you ask about her or their financial stability at the time of Ryan's killing?
Yes.
What does she tell you in regards to that?
She says personally they're carrying almost no debt. She mentions that just each of their vehicles still has some debt, but it's in total under $25,000 for she and Ryan's vehicles.
In terms of money-related arguments, what does she tell you that she found unpleasant for her?
She mentions that Ryan would question her about purchases or use of money, and sometimes she felt like she needed to check with him on things when it came to money because he had questioned her about that.
Was that talk related to credit card usage that she would have to get from Ryan?
Yes, I don't know if it was specific to credit cards, but she talked about needing to sometimes get permission, she felt like, to make purchases.
And she didn't like that?
She did not. She said perhaps it could be controlling, and then she said, well, I really don't think he was controlling. So she kind of softened on that, but she did not like being challenged on the purchasing and use of money.
As you talk about the marital relationship, does the name of Houston Danker come up?
Yes.
Are you the one who brings it up?
No.
What does she tell you about Houston Danker?
So as I start to probe whether there was any infidelity or thoughts of infidelity, those kinds of things, she mentions Houston Danker as someone that she had cut hair for.
And that there had been rumors that they were having an affair?
She said yes. Everybody around town had rumored that she and Houston were having an affair.
Does she tell you a time frame of how long she'd been communicating with Houston Danker?
She says about 6 months prior to Ryan's killing, they had started to talk.
Do you ask her what Ryan Cooper's perception of Houston Danker, does that conversation come up?
Yes.
What does she tell you?
She said that Ryan, along with the rest of the town, was did not trust Houston. That Ryan believed, like many people, that Houston had slept with older women in the community and was not to be trusted.
So she acknowledged rumors about extramarital relationship, that there were rumors between her and Houston Danker, but when you asked her if this was true, what was her position?
She gave a strong or an adamant denial that there'd been anything, and said that Ryan had no reason not to trust her and she had no reason not to trust Ryan.
Claimed that she only cut Houston's hair?
Only cut his hair and then watched his children several times for him, babysat.
Did you ask her when her last communication or when she was last with Houston Danker?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
Several months after Ryan was killed, she noted was her last communication.
She gave you a date of sometimes in September 2021?
Yes, September 2021 is when she said she last had communication with Houston.
And in regards to that, does she say it's when she cuts his hair?
Yes, I think she pointed to that being the last time that she cut his hair.
Did you ask her about communicating with Houston Danker through Snapchats?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what she told you about the nature of communication with Houston in regards to using the Snapchat application?
I think she describes it as being fairly light usage, and nothing provocative or anything like that. It was pretty simple use of Snapchat.
And so nothing personal from Houston, just...
Right, I understood that there was little to no kind of back and forth, maybe personally, or it was very minor. Some of that would have been maybe even messages that multiple people would receive. So it was not of a intimate or personal nature.
So like a group message?
Yes, that's how I understood it.
Did you ask her whether she had wondered whether Houston Danker had killed Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I asked her that, or she commented on that.
Do you remember the nature of that part of the conversation?
Yes, she said she had wondered, but in the same sentence she said, but everybody had kind of wondered that, or that had been kind of somewhat typical or kind of town speculation.
Did she linger on that, or she immediately moved on from it?
Very quick, a passing comment.
Did you ask her whether Ryan Cooper had ever accused her of having an affair with Houston?
Yes.
What did she tell you in regards to that?
She said, no, he would have no reason to ever accuse me of that. That's, again, where she told me that he trusted me and I trusted him, and there would have been no point in him asking me about any affairs because they hadn't happened.
You talked about being in that residence prior to talking to the defendant, Ms. Karina Cooper, correct?
Yes.
Can you describe that residence for the jury in terms of the size, like how big, whether it's big, smaller house?
Yes, spending just a little bit of time in the house prior to talking to the defendant, it was noteworthy to me how tight things were. I'm thinking of the bedroom to the bathroom to the kitchen to the living room, the areas that were described for me later by the defendant. This was all very, very close in proximity. It was small. And
we've put on the board what's been admitted as State Exhibit 313. Are you able to see that from where you are, Agent Turbett?
Yes.
When you describe the bedroom, the bathroom, from the bedroom, as you say, again, when she says, I went to the bathroom and then went and looked out of the kitchen window to the driveway, you're saying it's very close quarters.
Yes.
As you talk to her father, does she give a later account of what she thinks the loud noise would have been?
Yes.
What does she say?
So initially it was the shower caddy that she'd kind of detailed and described, and then later she said, after further reflection, she had believed that the crash that woke her the second time when she was woke was actually the screen door from the living room that sometimes the wind would catch and bang into the railing.
So now she gives you an account that what she believes it was the screen door shutting.
Yes.
Sometimes in your discussion, do you bring up the novelty or the use of forensic evidence in your investigations?
Yes.
What in particular do you share or do you tell her?
So again, fairly typical in these interviews, I share some of the technology that law enforcement's able to utilize to gather evidence. I mentioned cell phone activity very quickly, but move on to a concept, I think I refer to it as fencing or geofencing, but this is, again, where there's an ability to track people's usage of their cell phones even when they're just moving around. Advertisers are gathering data, and so beyond just using your cell phone or sending a text messages or kind of conventional pinging of a cell phone, that there's this ability to kind of draw a fence around an area and see which phones have been in the fence and out of the fence. So we call that fencing.
So talk to her about this geofencing technology. What do you observe as you talk to her about this? What do you observe from her?
She nods. She says yes. Doesn't seem surprised by the technology or our use of it.
Appear to be savvy about, have some knowledge about geofencing?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled, you can answer.
Yeah, at that time, geofencing was even less known than it is now. So you would, the typical person when we say that thing would not have a lot of knowledge about the use of geofencing or how we would be able to put cell phone usage in or out of a certain area.
So you talk, and so she appears to be very savvy about it.
Yes, somebody would have to be knowledgeable about technology, I would think, to understand that that was something that, I learned about through law enforcement use.
At this time, as you talk about geofencing, are you discussing the nature of the investigation and what you're seeing from what the phones will be saying?
Eventually, yes. So the conversation starts broad, just about different tools that we utilize. I talk about a couple of other electronic items that could be at our disposal, and then I draw that back to the case at hand and talk about what we'd be able to tell about what happened that night in that area.
To tell about this, does a body language or a demeanor change?
No.
As you, at some point in this discussion, does she become agitated?
Yes.
Is that when you started questioning what she told you?
Yes, I start to move from general application of the things that we talked about, the electronic evidence and those kinds of things, to what happened that night. And she became upset with me and said I was accusing her.
Claimed you're accusing her. Did you tell her you just wanted to know what had happened to Ryan?
Yes, I encouraged her to continue to talk to me and help me understand what happened that night in the house.
And what did she tell you in that regards to what happened, if she knew what happened to Ryan?
She tells me that if she knew who had done this to her husband, she would be in jail because she would have, in her words, she would have already killed that motherfucker.
Did she, in fact, at this point, chase you out of property?
Yes. She told me to get off her property. And that was the last thing that I just said that she said to me as I was still encouraging her to sit down and continue telling me what happened that night.
She told you she was hiring a private investigator
Yes.
to solve this killing of Ryan?
Yes.
Now, you spent a considerable lengthy time talking to the defendant, Ms. Cooper, correct?
Yes, I believe just a little over 3 hours that day.
In these 3 hours that you spent with the defendant, did she ever tell you that she was sending Snapchat messages to Houston Danker at 3:30 a.m. on the morning that Ryan was killed?
No, nowhere in that description that I'd ask her to give me to walk through the night did she tell me that.
Did she tell you that she was awake at 4:13 in the morning or thereabouts, deleting or looking up something on her phone?
No.
Did she tell you that about 3:32 or thereabouts a.m. that morning that she and Mr. Houston Danker were talking about her remembering to pick the shell casings?
There was no mention of that at all.
Did she acknowledge receiving a text message, a Snapchat message from Houston Danker at 4:42 a.m. stating, "Yep, just woke up"?
No. No acknowledgement of any messaging between the two of them that morning.
Did she tell you that when she found Ryan Cooper in the living room bleeding, whether she rendered any aid to Ryan Cooper?
She did not tell me that she had rendered aid in any way.
Did she tell you whether she checked for a pulse or heartbeat or anything to that extent?
No, that was not part of any of the description of events.
At some point in your conversation, do you talk about Michael Cole's clutch that was found in the driveway?
Not specifically, but a purse or something to that effect.
What would have been a clutch, correct?
Yes, yes.
Did she explain to you why that clutch was out in the driveway?
No, she acknowledged that that it was outside with no explanation for why it was out there.
During this discussion, you talked about her telling you about finances. Did she disclose to you that her bank had been urging her urgently to transfer money for overdrafts in days leading up to the killing of Ryan Cooper?
No.
Did she tell you that she made about 170 steps between 4:23 a.m. and 4:30 or so a.m. that morning?
No.
As part of your investigation, do you at some point talk to the man we've talked about, Houston Danker?
Yes, I do talk to him.
Do you remember the day that you talked to Houston Danker?
Yes, that would be October, I believe, 27th of 2023.
Prior,
May we approach them, Your Honor?
You may. we may have several breaks, so we do need to take something else up with just council and parties. So I am gonna take another break, and we'll say it'll be at least 10 minutes. So just so you folks know where kind of the time frame. And I would just remind you of that admonition again: keep an open mind, don't talk to anybody, don't let anybody talk to you, and don't do any sort of investigation or research, and stay away from any media accounts. So with that, we'll see you no sooner than 10 minutes. All right, go ahead and be seated. All right, so what I know at this point, which isn't much, is that we're going to get into some questioning of Agent Turbett related to his interview of Mr. Danker, and that the defendant has an objection to that. And so why don't we start with you, Ms. Watt, and let me know what the defendant's objection is.
Thank you. We're not objecting to the interview that he gave to police in 2021. My specific objection is to the interview he gave in 2023. And because it's my understanding that the statements will come in if they're in furtherance of the conspiracy and up and until the conspiracy or the objective has been completed. It's our position that the statements in 2023 made to law enforcement, at that time, the conspiracy has ended. I know that the state is going to say that this is part of the cover-up, but there is some case law, at least the case that I found in Iowa, I believe, was State v. Waterbury, 307 Northwest 2nd, 45, Iowa, 1981. In that case, there's a statement given to police by a co-conspirator that occurs within 6 hours of the event. Because basically, the conspiracy at issue here is the conspiracy to commit murder. So the objective is to finish the murder. And in the Waterbury case, that person gives a false statement to the police about who killed the person within 6 hours of the event. I can't find any cases that specifically allow for statements by a co-conspirator that are made years after the event. And it's my position that the cover-up doesn't last for years. And also the cover-up is not part of the conspiracy, as clearly in every case, people don't want to get caught. That is just part of any crime. And so that's not necessarily the cover-up, just every statement anybody makes. I have some indication here that while there may be a subsidiary conspiracy to conceal the crime after the central purpose has been achieved, such a subsidiary conspiracy may not be implied from the circumstantial evidence showing merely that the conspiracy and that the conspirators took care to cover up their crime to escape detention and punishment. Because here, the conspiracy again is to kill Ryan. It's unreasonable to say and believe that every single thing that Houston says to police up until his arrest counts as a statement by a co-conspirator. Further, we don't have any indication that these two are even still talking. I think Agent Turbett has testified that Karina said that the last time she spoke to Houston was in September of 2021, and I haven't heard any evidence suggesting that they spoke after that or closer in time to 2023. So our position is essentially that the concealment phase doesn't last forever, and this is too distant and too remote from the actual event and the objective of the conspiracy. Thank you.
And so the hearsay, it's hearsay based on, because it doesn't meet that conspiracy exception.
Yes.
And the quote you just gave, was that from the case that you cited, the 307 Northwest 45? Or was that from some
I
other?
don't know that it was. I would have to look and try and figure out where exactly
Okay.
I got that from.
But that's the right site, 307 Northwest 45.
That is the citation for the case I could find that's most close to this.
And to be clear, again, you guys have better information. There was a 2021 interview of Mr. Danker, and we're not talking about that. If the state is going to offer evidence related to that, you don't have an objection.
No objection to that one. I think there's only 2 interviews, one in 21. Well, there's 3. One in 21, one in 23, and one in 24. I don't think the state intends to go into the one in 24.
All right. So who's Mr. Kodiaga?
For the purpose of consistency, I know Mr. Ringel has argued this with the court before. We'll let Mr. Ringel argue this part.
All right.
Thank you, Judge. The state is relying on State v. Tangi. That's 616 Northwest 2nd, 564, and other similar cases, and noting that
I'm sorry, 616 Northwest 2nd. Give me that last bit again.
564.
Okay.
In noting that the conspiracy can continue to the concealment phase, I believe there's a number of cases where statements were admitted that essentially involve covering up the crime that was committed and misleading the police. Now, the cover-up in and of itself, or a cover-up of a crime, doesn't necessarily constitute a conspiracy, thereby allowing information or otherwise hearsay statements to be admitted. But when a conspiracy is found to pre-exist, and then there are statements made in furtherance of that conspiracy, including cover-up, they are admissible. And I think that's an important distinction here, and I think that's what's outlined in Tangi and other similar cases. From the state's perspective, the information that we'll be admitting essentially is in furtherance of the conspiracy in the sense that it is information that from the state's perspective appears to be agreed upon by the 2 parties here. There's a striking similarity between the information that they're providing to law enforcement, and so it's the state's position that this is in fact in furtherance of the conspiracy.
And again, I don't know what the statements are. Presumably, it would be kind of a statement-by-statement analysis, right? I mean, wouldn't you have to analyze each statement by Mr. Danker to determine whether or not it's in furtherance of the conspiracy? I don't know how long this interview is, but I mean, again, I haven't seen it. I haven't been provided a transcript of it. I don't know what's in there. And so, I mean, the defendant's essentially saying it should be blanketly excluded. You're essentially saying it should be blanketly, admitted. And isn't it a more, I guess, refined analysis than that?
Judge, I think it probably is a little more refined, and I think it is more nuanced. I do think that once the court has made a determination that a conspiracy exists, those statements made by the co-conspirator are not hearsay. They're statements by a party opponent. I think that the statements that are relevant to the analysis that the state believes are in furtherance of the conspiracy, in other words, statements made to conceal not only the objective of the crime, but the fact that the crime occurred at all, do come in. And then I think statements that are necessary to explain the context in which those statements were made would come in as well. That's what the state intends to admit. I don't believe the state intends to simply hit play or talk about everything that Houston Danker said to law enforcement.
All right. And just so we're clear on where we're at as far as the conspiracy, it's my understanding, at least for purposes of this, Ms. Cooper is not contesting, for purposes of this analysis, Ms. Cooper is not contesting the existence of a conspiracy for purposes of this analysis.
Correct.
All right. So that's...
Well, we are saying the conspiracy has ended.
I understand. That's a different analysis. You're saying there was for purposes of this analysis, there was a conspiracy. So statements properly made during the course of that conspiracy are not hearsay. Your argument, again, is the conspiracy's ended, and that still, even then, you've got to determine that the statement has been made in furtherance of the conspiracy cover-up. And again, I guess my point is each particular statement would need to meet that analysis. So let me bring this back a second. We have a 2021 interview that apparently there's no dispute about. Are you planning on offering that interview as well, or
Portions,
not?
yes.
I'm sorry, portions, yes? All right. Well, Anything else, Ms. Watt or Mr. Ringel? Ms. Watt, your microphone's on, and so I can't hear you very well.
I think the place I was getting my information where I was talking about subsidiary conspiracies. Could be U.S. v. Lombard, Lombard, 72 F. 3rd, 170, First Circuit, 1995. I also have possibly Grunewald v. United States. That's Grunewald, 353 U.S. 391, 1957. If I narrow it down better, I will let you know.
All right. Mr. Ringel, anything further on your end?
If I may have just a moment here.
Yeah.
Judge, I would just note that I'm not aware of any case that indicates essentially a time bar on the length of a conspiracy and how long that conspiracy can continue after the time of the killing. Other than that, I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
All right. Well, what I'm going to do is take 5 or so minutes, take a quick look at these cases you've cited, and we'll come back in and I'll make a ruling on this and bring the jury back in. All right? So we'll be in recess for approximately 5 minutes, maybe a few more. We'll see how quickly I All right, we are back on the record outside the presence of the jury. We have counsel and Ms. Cooper present. I believe off the record, Mr. Ringel, you indicated you had something additional you wished to tell me, perhaps, related to this matter?
Judge, thank you. I believe the parties are largely on the same page with regard to which statements are going to come in. They do apply primarily, perhaps if not exclusively, to the earlier interview, the 2021 interview, with regard to timelines and the length of the conspiracy. I would just point the court to State versus Ross, which is 573 Northwest 2nd, 906.
I've got that pulled up. That was the case I found when doing my research as well. All right, anything further from either Mr. Ringel or Ms. Watt?
I just didn't hear the citation.
It's 573 Northwest 2nd, 906, State v. Ross.
Thank you.
All right. So, just want to make sure. Nothing further, Mr. Ringel?
Correct, nothing further.
Nothing further, Ms. Watt?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, so again, I know Ms. Cooper's not contesting this for purposes of these statements, and I don't believe did for prior statements that may have come in as well, because no objection was made. But just so it's clear, I do believe that there is a preponderance of the evidence that supports the existence of a conspiracy in this case, and that's based on the testimony evidence that's already been received, as well as the court's review of Exhibits 1 and 2 that were offered by the state previously. So once a conspiracy has been established, then statements made by a co-conspirator are not hearsay. If 2 conditions are established, 1, the statement has to be made during the course of the conspiracy, and it must be made in the promotion of the conspiracy's object or design. As I mentioned, I also took a look at State v. Ross, and that's Iowa Supreme Court case from 1998, 573 Northwest 2nd, 906 as the site. In that case, the hotly contested issue was whether the statements were made in furtherance of the conspiracy, and the court quoting from the case, it says, as in most illegal schemes, the perpetrators agree either expressly or tacitly that they will do whatever it takes to conceal the scheme from victims and from authorities. They do so to continue the scheme, or at least to keep the fruits of it, and to avoid prosecution. And anyway, they go on in that case to admit statements that were made allegedly in that case in furtherance, as part of the alleged concealment phase in furtherance of the conspiracy. So based on that case and the authorities cited in that case, I do believe that statements that are part of a concealment phase, even if they're 2 years later, would be admissible. I mean, it makes no logical sense that there would be a timeline on concealment of a crime between co-conspirators, 20 years down the road if people are, had committed a crime, conspired to commit a crime together, and were still engaged in concealing it up. Logically, why should that be treated differently than something 6 months after the crime? So anyway, for those reasons, to the extent the statements in the interview are offered part of the concealment phase, the objection's overruled, and we can move forward. Any questions related to that, or are we ready to proceed? I'll start with you, Mr. Ringel.
Judge, I don't believe so. Thank you.
Ms. Watt, any questions on your end?
No.
Okay. Then I'm going to step out, grab Erin, and see if she can bring the jury back in, and then we'll get started. And just so I'm not planning on taking another break before the lunch recess. Everybody going to be good with that? 2 minutes. All right, go ahead and have a seat, everyone. All right, we're back on the record with our jurors, counsel, and parties present. And again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We have Agent Turbett back on the stand. And again, I would remind you that even though we took a short break, you are still under oath. And with that, Mr. Kodiaga, you may resume your direct examination.
Thank you, Judge. Agent Turbett, before we took a break, we had started talking about Houston Danker, whose name had come up in the investigations, correct?
Yes.
As part of your investigation, I think your testimony earlier was at some time in October of 2023, you do personally talk to Houston Danker, correct?
Yes.
Prior to talking to Mr. Danker in October of 2023, had you or one of your other agents talked to Mr. Danker in close proximity to the time of Ryan Cooper's death?
Yes, my colleague, a fellow DCI agent, spoke to Houston.
You reviewed that interview with Mr. Danker prior to even talking to him before talking to him in 2023, correct?
Yes, I reviewed the June 18 interview.
On June 18th, is that June 18th, 2021?
Yes.
The day that Ryan Cooper was killed.
Yes.
Reviewing that, did you understand that that Houston Danker was asked about her communication with the defendant, Karina Cooper, over Snapchat?
Yes.
What was his response to that?
Again, I think he says there's no real communication going on via Snapchat between the two at that time.
When you say that, can you elaborate on what he says more on that.
I think he admits to some messaging, but again, there's nothing intimate or personal going on between the two of them.
Does it give a frequency of how often he being Houston Danker and Karina Cooper would communicate on Snapchat?
Once or twice a week.
Does it give a time frame of how long they would have been communicating?
I don't remember. It might have been a period of several months, 3 or 4 months.
But otherwise, these are random snaps, not anything.
Yes.
Does he get asked what his relationship with Karina Cooper entails?
Yes.
What does he say?
Again, she's been cutting his hair. I think he says at that point, maybe for a period of even a couple of years. And they have just had what he would describe as kind of a typical conversation almost between the person getting their hair cut and the person doing it.
Is Houston Danker asked if there was any problem between him and Ryan Cooper, especially as regards Snapchats?
Yes.
What's his response?
No problem between he and Ryan with regard specifically to anything to do with Snapchat.
Is he asked how he will describe his relationship with the defendant, Karina Cooper?
Yes, the agent asked him to talk about that.
What, in Houston Danker's words, how does he describe himself in terms of his relationship with Karina Cooper?
Houston tells the agent at that time that he's like a gay best friend to Karina, totally platonic. There's no sexual or romantic interest. So he says it's like a gay best friend.
Is he at this time confronted whether he was having an affair or a sexual affair with Karina Cooper?
He's asked that, yes.
And is his response still that no, it's just a gay best friend?
Yes, strong denial to any affair.
Does he acknowledge that there are rumors in the community that they are having a sexual relationship?
He does. He says during this time of her cutting his hair, they've talked about relationships and kids and life, and he has shared that he has a couple of young children. He's a single dad, so Karina has apparently done a little bit of babysitting, so he says the community picks up on the fact that his truck is over at the Cooper house on one occasion, and so the rumor has started that they're having an affair and that he is, in his words, banging Karina, having sex with her.
And so he says Karina has been watching his kids, and that's the extent, and that's what's led to the rumors, because the defendant has been babysitting his kids, his being Houston Danker's kids.
Yes, Houston's very clear in the June 18, 2021 interview that she just cuts his hair and then she has babysat for him. I think he puts it at several times, just a few times. And that is what has started the rumors in the community.
Is he asked if there's been any inappropriate Snapchats or messages between him, being Houston Danker, and the defendant, Karina Cooper?
Yes.
What's his response to that?
He says absolutely no inappropriate Snapchatting going between them.
Thank you very much, Agent Turbett. At this point, Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Ms. Watt?
Thank you. I understand you interviewed Karina, was it 2023?
Yes, May 4th, 2023.
And Aaron Cooper was there at the time as well?
He met on the driveway and was there for a short bit, and then he ended up leaving and staying in the area.
Was there a time where Karina wanted Aaron to stand by and be with her during the interview?
There was some discussion of that.
Okay. So at least at that time, Aaron and Karina appeared to be on good terms?
Seemed Courteous, yeah, as we stood in the driveway and talked for a few minutes.
There's been a lot of talk about this Rottweiler dog and how the dog might be expected to behave. Did you review the body cam of Deputy Fangman?
No, I did.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
When he arrives on scene?
No, I did not.
Okay. So I guess, have you observed for yourself how this dog behaves?
No. I've only been told by others.
Is most of what you discussed with Karina on some sort of recording?
So the interview, as I said, or the total recording from the time I pull up in the driveway, I believe is 3 hours and 10 minutes. What you can hear is I activate my recorder immediately. I actually put a header on saying I've just arrived, the date and time. I get out and introduce myself, and at some point, unbeknownst to me, that recorder immediately malfunctions. It stops. I don't catch that until I'm now pretty far into my conversation with just Karina. I look down, so we're at about the 2-hour mark of my total time there, and I see the recorder has malfunctioned, so I immediately turn it on. And I'd taken good handwritten notes, so I recap everything with her and then continue on.
Okay. But with DCI agents, you do not have a body cam. It's only an audio recording?
That's correct.
You talked about how you talked to Karina about this geofencing, right?
Yes.
As an investigator, are you allowed to, is one of your tactics basically to sometimes tell people you have things that you may actually not have?
We would imply that we certainly have a better understanding or have more knowledge than we do sometimes. Yes.
Okay. So officers are allowed to lie to people?
They are. The Supreme Court has said that.
It's my understanding, in looking at your notes from the recording at least, that you explained to Karina how geofencing works.
Yes, in some type of kind of simple fashion.
Okay. And also how cell tower data works.
Again, in a simple way, yes. I think.
Right. But she didn't say, hold up, I already know all these things.
She did not. She just nodded and says yes.
Do we have geofencing information in this case that you're aware of?
I actually don't know. You'd have to speak to somebody on the technology side.
Okay. So I imagine then you don't necessarily know what the geofence actually captures and is capable of?
In this case?
In any?
It's not my area of expertise, so we would rely on other people. Geofencing has been used, and we would just ask what's been captured in a case-by-case basis if that's utilized.
Okay. So you wouldn't know whether the geofence actually captures every phone that travels through that fence?
In this case again, or?
In any?
I don't know how tightly someone would describe that. I guess you'd have to talk to somebody that has better understanding of that.
The conversation with Houston Danker in 2021 that we're discussing, that was captured on a video recording, correct?
It was.
Okay, and you had a chance to look at that?
I did.
Would you agree with me that his statements, the best evidence of those would be actually watching the video?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to play that video, and I'd mark it as Defendant's Exhibit C and ask that it be admitted.
Any objection?
No objection.
You ready for me to try your screen? Just let me know.
Yes, let's
All
try it.
right.
I don't know, we'll find out.
No. Try it again. Give me 1 second. I just tried the screen again. All right. Nothing. All right. You wanted to approach. You. Okay, we are back on the record. Nobody left. We still have Mr. Or Agent Turbett at the stand. And with a little help from the state, we have the defendant's Exhibit C ready to go. So, Ms. Watt, I think you were asking that this Exhibit C, which had been admitted, be published at this point?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So it appears to me we have half of it working at this point. That be fair?
That is fair.
Counsel approach. I think with the agreement of counsel is we're going to move forward with, I think, questioning of witnesses, and we're going to try to set aside things that require use of technology at this point till maybe over the, and give counsel some time over the lunch hour to hopefully get squared away with all the tech issues that may crop up. So with that, we'll come back to playing that interview at a later point. Ms. Watt, why don't you go ahead then with your cross-examination?
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
All right. Any redirect, Mr. Kodiaga?
Just to be clear, when you asked about the video recording that we were unable to play in regards to it being best evidence, is that just because it will have more details of exactly every word that was spoken?
Yes.
But your summary or summation to the jury is pretty much what that 20 minutes, what is said within that 20 minutes of that interview.
Yes, and what I said was accurate.
And pretty accurate to the flavor of what was said in that 20 minutes of that interview.
Very much so.
You talked about your interview being recorded by an audio recorder, correct?
Yes,
And even though your recorder failed, you still were able to capture a lot and go through the same with the defendant, Karina Cooper, of what you'd covered before.
yes, I took very detailed notes, which we always do as a backup because malfunctions happen with those recorders in the field. And then I reread those things back to her to make sure I understood them correctly from my notes, and she agreed.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any recross?
When I'm saying best evidence, I mean, wouldn't it be, as an investigator, you're evaluating somebody's credibility, right?
I am when I talk to people, sure.
Okay, so when I say best evidence, it's just sometimes better to talk or see the person and hear the words come out of their mouth on a video.
You would have the benefit of visual, and you would have more detail, as the prosecution said.
Right. That's all. Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Kodiaga?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Agent Turbett, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Mr. Ringel or Mr. Kodiaga or Ms. Williams. State prepared to call its next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Kirsty Sheda.
All right. Good morning, ma'am. You want to come over and have a seat to my far left, if you would? So you can adjust that microphone however you'd like. Yep, it's on. You can move it up, down, closer. So.
Okay.
All right. First thing I'm going to do, ma'am, is swear you in. If you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And then if you could please give us your first and last name and spell them both for us for the record.
Kirsty Sheda, Kirstie Seda.
All right. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Sheda. Do you prefer Kirsty or Ms. Sheda?
Kirsty is fine.
Thank you. Kirsty, where do you currently live?
Traer, Iowa.
And are you currently employed?
Yes.
How are you employed?
I work at JSA Development, downtown Waterloo.
Okay. Ms. Sheda, at some point in 2024, did you meet with law enforcement regarding this case?
Yes.
Did they tell you why they wanted to meet with you?
No.
Was it generally to discuss the death of Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Did you know Ryan and Karina Cooper well?
Yes.
How long have you known Ryan and Karina?
Probably 8 to 10 years.
Okay. When did you first meet them?
When I moved to town.
Okay.
To Traer.
About when did you move to Traer?
2007.
Okay. Who'd you meet first, Ryan or Karina?
Ryan.
Okay. How did you meet Ryan?
I was working at a place in Traer, and it was a hardware store, cell phone place, so he came in for parts
Okay.
and cell phone.
At some point thereafter, did you meet Karina?
Yes.
Okay. And did you and Karina and Ryan develop a sort of friend group, I guess, as it were?
Yes.
And who all was in this friend group that you all shared?
It would have been me and my husband, Carmen and Jamie, Matt and Regan, Mike, or Ike and Michelle. Cynthia and Barry. There's multiples.
What kind of things would you all do as a group?
Various things. We would go hang out at each other's places. A bunch of the friends had shops that we hung out at.
Was this a frequent type of activity or organization, or how would you characterize how often you all saw each other?
I would say, at least once a weekend, if not during the week also.
Did you all travel together?
Yes.
Okay. And take your friends and kids together on these
Correct.
trips? Okay. And you stated you knew Ryan first, correct?
Yes.
And how would you describe Ryan Cooper?
Man of little words.
Okay. Understand. Did you at some point work with Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, where was that at?
Aurora Agronomy.
Okay. What did you do there?
I was the office. Took care of all the books, ordering.
How did you come to be in that position at Aurora?
Karina had worked there before, and she was pregnant with Cortland, and then she wanted to stay home. So then I applied for the job.
Did she kind of refer you to that job, or let you know in advance, hey, I'm leaving this position?
Yeah, we had talked.
Okay. And were you and Karina at one point, were you pregnant at the same time?
Yes, with our first children.
Okay. You kind of bond
our
over
second.
that? I'm sorry.
And our second.
And your second, okay. And did you all kind of bond over those
Yes.
kind of mutual pregnancies together? Would you say that you and Karina became good friends during that time?
Yes.
In this time that you knew Ryan and Karina together, what observations did you make about how Ryan would interact with Karina?
I guess if Karina was mad or yelling at him, his demeanor was always just to put his head down and take it.
How was he with his children?
Good.
You said at some point you and Karina also became good friends. How would you describe your relationship with Karina at the beginning?
Yeah, we had just an interest of bonding because we both did hair, and we kind of just became friends through that, and her starting to date Ryan. We would hang out as families together. We'd go on vacations together. We're just close with the whole Cooper family.
At some point, did you actually help out in her shop, her hair shop?
No, I'd never.
Did your friend group have kind of a group Snapchat?
Yes.
Okay. And was there one group Snapchat, or were there several group
Several.
Snapchats? At some point, would you say that there was a shift in your relationship with Karina, or Karina's relationship with the whole kind of extended friend group?
Yes.
Can you pinpoint about when that occurred?
Late fall of the year before Ryan was murdered.
So the fall of 2020, would that be about
Correct.
the time? What were some of the changes that you noticed?
Just pulling away from our friend group, not responding back to messages. We had heard some different things throughout town, and we just kind of started separating, I guess.
I guess that's kind of where I was going. Did something specific, or can you identify something specific that may have triggered that shift in the friend dynamic?
It would have been the rumors going around about her in Houston.
Before we get to that, I want to ask you a little bit about what you noticed between Karina and Ryan's dynamic. How would you describe Karina's behavior or towards Ryan?
Depending on a given day, some days were okay, some days were not, and her demeanor towards him was anger.
Can you recall any examples when you say some days were okay and then some days were not okay?
I mean, there was times where she would rant about him and talk about how, you know, he was always off working and doing all this stuff, and she would just get like angry about it. And at one of our conversations, she's like, we talked about, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember exactly her words, but it was like talking about if she would leave, she would try to take him for everything he had.
Were some of these incidents in front of Ryan? Would he be around during some of these times that she would behave this way?
I mean, when she was mad at him, she would, some of them were not. There was an instance where we were all hanging out and she would refer to him as, because we worked together, me and Ryan, she would refer to me as his work wife and kind of belittle, I guess, Ryan, and be like, why don't you ask your work wife? Maybe she can do it better for you.
Did you take that as kind of a dig?
Yeah, correct.
How would Ryan respond?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
Throughout Ryan's, or when you and Karina were discussing things, did she ever express to you any resentment towards Ryan?
Often.
What were those resentments centered around?
That Ryan got everything, or the farm got everything.
Were they primarily financial?
Yes.
Did Karina seem concerned with her place with the finances of the farm?
Objection, Your Honor. That's speculation, and much of this is beyond the scope of the minutes, Judge.
I'm sorry. What was the last part? I didn't.
Beyond the scope of the minutes. Speculation beyond the scope of the minutes.
Council
Maybe
want to
a problem.
approach? All right. After a brief bench conference, it's my understanding that the objection, to the extent that it's related, was based on exceeding the minutes, is withdrawn. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Then the balance of the objection is overruled and the witness may answer, assuming you remember the question.
No. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Ms. O'Connell, can you repeat back the question?
Did Karina seem concerned with her place with the finances of the farm?
Yes, at one point there was a conversation about Ryan's ex-wife, Liz, and saying that Liz got everything, and if she stepped out, she would have nothing. She would not get anything
Thank you.
because everything was wrapped up in Cooper Farms.
Kirsty, did you know Houston Danker?
Yes.
How did you know him?
He is a couple years younger than my son, my oldest son. So he was a Traer boy, and
So you knew him from around town?
yes.
At some point, did you learn that Karina and Houston were engaged in some sort of relationship?
Objection, Your Honor, relies on hearsay.
Overruled, you can answer.
Yes, I did.
How did you find out about this relationship?
We were at a friend's house, and he wound up showing up there in the late fall
And when you say
of 2020,
he, who are you referring to?
Houston.
Okay.
And we had heard throughout the day that they were texting each other and snapping each other back and forth. And when he got to the house, we took his phone and seen all the messages.
Did you actually see these messages yourself?
Her Snapchat handle was Casey with a heart, and I seen I love you and a picture above.
Where were you when you saw these messages?
I was at Pam Ewalt's house.
What did the messages suggest to you was the nature of Houston and Karina's relationship?
A sexual relationship and affair.
Did you ever confront Karina about those messages?
I did not. She had sent me a message the next morning.
The message that she sent you the next morning, what did it say?
Paraphrasing to the fact of, can you believe the rumors going around that me and Houston, I just did not respond because at that point there was so many things prior to that that just solidified to me that she was lying.
Did she ever admit to you that she was having a relationship or an affair with Houston?
No.
Are you aware personally if at some point Ryan Cooper became aware of the relationship between Karina and Houston?
Yes.
How are you aware of that?
Through one of the guys I worked with at Aurora.
So someone else told you that?
Yes.
Do you recall about when that occurred?
Spring.
Would have been spring of 2021,
Yeah.
shortly before Ryan was killed.
Yeah, I'd say anywhere from that March, April-ish.
Okay. In the days and weeks leading up to Ryan's death, did you notice anything unusual or what you would describe as unusual about Karina's behavior?
Yes.
What did you notice?
2 days before his murder, we had all of our Snapchat group friend. Me and Carmen had gone down to a show in Dallas, Texas for our business. And when we landed and got to the airport, we were just scrolling through our Snapchats, and all of a sudden it said Karina had left the group, and we're going through the rest of them just normal, and she wound up going back, leaving all of the groups that we were ever a part of.
And can you just clarify, who is Carmen?
Carmen is a part of the friend group and a business partner of mine. Carmen Erhardt.
Did the ladies in the group kind of have a separate group that was apart from the full families of groups?
Yeah, we had multiple different
Okay.
groups.
Did you guys have kind of a
We had a
term-
golf group.
Okay, a golf group.
We had a TCMW group. I mean, we had them named all sorts of different things.
Okay. When you say the TCFW, was that the Tama County Housewives group?
Yes.
Okay. And so you're saying about 2 days before Ryan was killed, Karina just left all of the Snapchat groups. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did she give you a reason for exiting those groups?
Nope, I just remember in our golf group, there was a tournament on that Wednesday. All of us girls had started talking about getting a group together for golf on that Wednesday, like on that Monday prior. And I told the girls I was out because we were flying out. Everybody else in the group was talking to get their group. And then Karina just like never responded. She just...
I want to switch gears just a bit. Are you a gun owner, Kirsty?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of firearm do you have?
A Ruger 9.
Okay. Did you ever talk to Karina about guns or firearms in general?
Yes, we had one conversation that I recall shortly after we got our permit to carries, which is...
What types of guns did you and Karina talk about specifically, if any?
We talked about how I shot my Ruger 9 and I didn't like the kickback, that it kicked back really bad. And then I had shot my mother-in-law's baby 22 and that it was just like so smooth. And just how the correspondence of that was so different. And then she said the same thing. She's like, I just got a 22 as well, like, and it shoots so smooth. I understand what you're talking about. You know, like we just kind of talked about that.
So she described to you how the 22 shot as well.
Yes.
Do you remember about when that conversation occurred?
I would have got my permit to carry in 2018, December, so it would have been late winter going into January, February when we were hanging out.
Okay. So well before Ryan is killed, you guys are having pretty in-depth conversations about firearms and the different characteristics of the firearms you had, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. The defense may have some questions for you.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
So you became good friends with Ms. Cooper, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you were good friends for quite a long time, fair?
Fair.
And even during that time that she might have yelled at Ryan or had good days or bad days, you remained her friend?
Correct.
Okay. And that behavior was nothing that was shocking or concerning to you. I'm assuming you chalked that up as just sort of the normal dynamics of a relationship.
At points, yes.
Yeah, okay. And the friend group that you were having, these snaps and things like that, did law enforcement ever seize your phone to verify the Snapchat conversations?
No.
Okay. But those conversations and whether or not Ms. Cooper left the group and things like that, presumably she did that from her phone?
Yes, she would have to remove herself from the group.
And all the time that you saw Ms. Cooper get angry at Ryan or anything like that, you never saw any act of violence by Ms. Cooper towards Ryan, correct?
It was not physical, verbal.
Never hitting, never smacking, nothing like that?
No.
Yeah. Or threats of physical harm, threats to shoot him or anything like that, never said that?
No.
This golf tournament that you were talking about, was Karina even invited to that?
She signed up on her own.
guns that you were talking about, those are handguns, is that right?
Yes.
No talk about rifles or long guns?
No?
And the permit to carry, you ultimately got your permit to carry?
Yes.
And with that permit to carry, does that involve some education on your part?
Yes.
You have to learn some things.
Yes.
Are you aware that there are resources online that can provide you with that information?
I never looked into that, no.
Okay. Courses on guns, things like that?
No.
So you wouldn't know if Karina was taking advantage of those online resources when she was getting her permit?
I do not.
That information about the .22 being smooth, did you ever witness Miss Cooper shoot that gun?
I did not.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
Kirsty, were there points or incidences where you thought Karina's behavior towards Ryan was not normal or not appropriate?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Anything further, Mr. Strawbaker?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Mr. Kodiaga, is the state prepared to call its next witness?
The state calls Carmen Erhardt.
If anybody wants to stand up and stretch while we're waiting for the witness to come on in, feel free. I'm going to. All right, good morning, ma'am. If you want to go ahead and have a seat right there, that'd be great. And you can adjust that microphone however it best suits you. So first thing I'm going to do, ma'am, is swear you in. If you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the record, can you please give me your first name and your last name and spell them both for us, please?
Yes, it's Carmen Erhardt. First name C-A-R-M-E-N, last name E-R-H-A-R-D-T.
All right. Mr. Kodiaga.
Thank you. Still morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Stated your name. Can you tell us where you currently reside?
I live in Traer, Iowa.
Again, where?
Traer,
Strayer.
Iowa. Yep.
And is this a community you've lived in for a long time?
Yes. I lived there since I've been married for 20 plus years.
Do you know a person by the name of Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Ryan Cooper?
I have known him got to know him very well through all the stuff that we did. Being a small town, you're going to know people, but as far as Ryan, we do things like such as going motorcycling, snowmobiling. We take vacations, stuff together, but have just known him more through my husband is how I got to know him.
What's your husband's name?
Jamie.
Okay. So you knew Ryan through Jamie.
Yes.
Fair to say you and the Coopers were family friends?
Yes, we did. I knew Ryan before I knew Karina, but once they got together, we got starting doing things such as when we started motorcycling and we'd go on motorcycling trips. We'd go on, we have a place in Wisconsin, and they would go, and for a short time that they had a camper up at that location in which we would share and spend weekends and holidays and stuff too at.
Do you know someone by the name of Karina Cooper?
Yes, I do.
Do you see that person in this courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify that person by where she's seated or an item of her clothing?
She's sitting over to my right with a sweater on.
Did the record reflect identification?
The record so reflects.
So you've testified you knew Karina through Ryan. Were your families pretty close?
We were, like I said, we did a lot of things together, from just vacationing times, but I got to know her very well, became a good friend of hers. She would do my hair.
So we've had testimony that she used to cut hair and do hair?
Yes,
Okay. And that was at their home in Traer?
yes.
At some point in the year leading up to Ryan's death, does the nature of the friendship change?
It does. We had a little bit of falling out. I would say that the friendship wasn't as close as it had been in the past.
Now, as someone who was around both Karina Cooper and Ryan Cooper, were there occasions that you and your husband and the Coopers would go out to socialize, maybe to drink or hang out?
Yes, it was quite frequent, yeah.
During these occasions, did you chance to notice or observe moments of hostility exhibited towards Ryan Cooper by Karina Cooper?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what issues would make Karina be hostile towards Ryan?
It would be different times, like arguments where she would just get very upset with him. She would, sometimes that was even directed to other people, Jen, just him, but she would just, for whatever reason, they would be arguing and she would get very loud and would argue in person with them.
Will she get very mean when she was upset with Ryan?
Yes, I mean, you could physically tell she was very upset and yelled at that with him.
Agitated?
I'm sorry.
Agitated.
One of the prime example would be is I know that we were at a location, we've been out, she was arguing with Ryan. Another friend tried to step in and kind of like dissolve the situation. She even grabbed that person by the hair and ripped them back out of the argument. So you could physically tell that she was very upset. As far as the conversation, I don't know what was going on, but it was very blatant. You could see that she was not happy with them.
Now, were there conflict that you observed involving money or finances?
There's been conflict, yeah. We've personally had some conversations where she's shared some of what she may have felt like he was getting, and as far as what her money would go towards and what she would spend on. There would be conversations as far as the farm setup. Like I said, we spent a lot of time together. She was around my family. Our family farms, as far as how they're set up, were pretty similar, so I was familiar with how things were.
Can you tell the jury more about that?
Some of them would be the conversations we had would be where she would be upset, where she felt like if he wanted to buy a side-by-side, he would get the side-by-side. He wanted the truck, he got the truck, but her money, she would have to, that she was making, she would have to spend that on the food, the kids, and that, so she wouldn't get, but then she would also in the same breath state that if she, Ryan had to buy his own side-by-side, but Cooper's Farms would buy Aaron the side-by-side and stuff, so.
So, as regard the Cooper's farm, was it your observation or understanding that she knew how money was controlled in terms of the Cooper farm controlling some of the money that Ryan had access to?
Yes, I mean, in our and just our conversations to each other, yeah, she had a good understanding how it is, and just even, like I said, with family farms being set up pretty similar, and knowing how those corporate farms work, she knew where the money came from.
Likewise, because your family had the same kind of setup,
Yes.
where the corporate farming family was in charge of the finances of the
Yes.
expenditure.
As far as, yep.
At some point, do you become aware of the defendant, Karina Cooper, having an affair with someone named Houston Danker?
At first, it was just hearsay as far as rumors. But the day I really became very well aware of it is we had been actually out an evening at Larry's in Lincoln, and we had all been, Ryan, Karina, Jamie and I had been there. We had actually left earlier before the bar closed and went home. We were already in bed asleep once we got a phone call, which actually was Ryan calling Jamie in the middle of the night, which was that was unusual. In fact, I think it was probably the first time we ever got a phone call that late at night from him. So my husband answered it, afraid that like something had happened, and so he picked up the phone and he was talking to him. Ryan proceeds to tell Jamie that...
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
So there was a phone call Ryan makes at night.
Mm-hmm.
That phone call, is that how you became aware of an affair?
Yes.
Did you ever personally confront Karina about the affair with Houston Danker?
I didn't, for a few different reasons.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
Now, so the answer to your question is you didn't confront Karina. Fair enough?
I did not know.
Let's talk about your knowledge of firearms and Karina's knowledge of firearms. Did you attend a class or situation where you would have been with Karina and she would have been around firearms?
Yes, I took a concealed weapons permit class, which was actually held at Ryan and Karina's home, in the shop at their home.
So there was a class that you took in Karina's and Ryan Cooper's home?
At the shop, yes.
From your understanding and from your relationship that you've talked broadly about that stretches across various years, was your observation that Karina had a fair good knowledge of firearms?
Yes, my husband had given me a gun for a Christmas gift. And with that, we've had conversations about that. We've talked about, because at times when I've actually shot the gun, and just discussion about the gun as far as the one he had given me, a little bit of my comfort level, and we talked back and forth about that. In that, just in our general conversations, when I was given that gift, the gun as a gift, she had made comments about how, my husband gets me a gun, Ryan, why don't you get me something like that? We've just in general talked about the fact that one of the reasons I took a concealed weapons permit is because any vehicle, any of our friend groups, no matter if it's ours, anybody's, there's typically a gun that's concealed in there. So the properly covered, we took that. Like I said, I've talked to as far as shooting it, being the comfort level of it, having them, being around them. We've had conversations. I've never, will honestly physically say that I can recall or remember.
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative.
Sustained.
So fair enough that she and you had been around firearms in many occasions and had
Yes.
discussed firearms in more than one sitting.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, let's talk about in the time leading, in the months or the period, the approximate period leading to Ryan's killing, was there some behavior changes that you noticed from Karina Cooper?
Yes, there was. Pulling out of friend groups, things that we did constantly together, no longer being involved in those, a great amount of weight loss that I even questioned and even asked her, and that's even in writing somewhere.
So withdrawal from your friend group and also physical in terms of how, experiencing what you observed as some weight loss?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Good morning, ma'am. How long were you friends with Miss Cooper?
We would have became friends closer to when we started motorcycling together, so it would have been roughly around a little bit before, I would say closer to after they'd been married.
And it occurs to me that when you say we were out or we were at a place, 9 times out of 10, you guys were at a bar or something like that. Is that right?
It would be boating, it would be on snowmobiles, it'd be, yeah.
There were times to get together for social drinking.
Yes.
Okay. And that's oftentimes when you would witness Miss Cooper get louder or upset or things like that, right?
It could have been, yes.
Was there some belief that that might have been related to alcohol?
There could be, yeah.
Yeah. And when she was upset, it could be about any number of things, not necessarily finances. It could just be something on that day. Fair? Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yes, sorry.
All right. So the finances weren't exactly a theme when she was upset. There are a lot of things that would make her upset. Fair?
Yep.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you're familiar with family farms.
Yes.
You're familiar because of your marriage, I assume, with how the LLCs work and that sort of thing?
It's on my side of the family farm.
It's on your side of the family farm. So you have that familiarity.
Yes.
And you shared that familiarity with Miss Cooper.
Yep.
Okay. Not unusual.
Nope.
Okay. The discussion and with firearms, was it your understanding that the husbands or people were getting you and Miss Cooper a handgun, and in particular wanted to make sure that you had a permit to carry because anybody could be in a car with a gun in it and people didn't want to get in trouble?
At the original, when we got that was the main, because there was understanding of it. But then as far as wanting to carry one myself, and later and being able to have my own at my own time. Yep.
Yeah. But as far as you and Miss Cooper, the idea that you needed a permit to carry was related to the fact that, there could be a shotgun in the car or something like that out on the farm, and the husbands didn't want people to get in trouble for driving those cars. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And when you talked about guns, that was always about handguns, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that was what you had, presumably what Ms. Cooper was asking for when she made the comment to Ryan, fair?
Yep.
No talk about long guns or rifles or that sort of thing, right?
We've talked about shooting as far as guns, but I mean, as far as the actual guns they gave us would have been just regular guns, handguns.
Handguns, right? Nothing further, thank you.
Yeah.
Any redirect, Mr. Kodiaga?
You've talked about shooting different types of guns and being around guns together, correct?
Yep.
Which involves a wide array of guns, from long guns to handguns.
Correct.
Fair enough. To you asked how long you've known Karina and Ryan. You said from when they were married. That's over a decade ago, correct?
Correct.
So you have a pretty good window into their relationship.
Yes.
And that window into their relationship, your testimony to this jury, is she will be upset at him for many reasons, including finances.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Hotbaker?
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Stay prepared to call its next witness.
Judge, we've moved pretty quick. Our next witness was scheduled for after lunch.
Okay. We're at 11:39. I'm going to actually ask you, ladies and gentlemen, want to keep this moving, but I also normally we go till 1:30, and you may have had plans. Are you okay if we go from now till, say, 1:15 and start 15 minutes earlier? Anybody have an issue with that? Okay, then that's what we're going to do. We'll take a lunch break now, and we'll start at 1:15. And ladies and gentlemen, again, I would just remind you of the admonition that I've given you previously. Again, high points, keep an open mind. Don't talk to anybody about the case. Don't let anybody talk to you about the case. Don't do any type of research or investigation, and avoid any and all media accounts and social media accounts of related to these proceedings. So have a good lunch, everybody. So just real quick on the record, I think we had a couple bench conferences. One preceded the on-the-record discussion about the objection, and just to kind of notify me of that. I think we had another one primarily just related to scheduling, and then we had another one that related to, I guess, my inquiry about whether we could postpone playing Exhibit C and move on with the witnesses. Was there, I don't recall anything else of substance that occurred. Anybody want to supplement that record or add to that record on bench conferences? Ms. Watt, anything on your end?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Mr. Kodiaga?
No, I would just like to maybe ask the court what time, if we're going to play this exhibit.
Well, I think that's going to be dependent on, I mean, it doesn't make sense to, I mean, we're done with the witness. We could do it right when we start. That's fine with me. But I guess that's assuming you guys can get the technology squared away. So anything else we need to do on the record?
No.
No? Okay, they'll go off the record. All right, go ahead and have a seat, everybody. Okay, we are back on the record. After our lunch break, we have our jurors, counsel and parties present. You may recall that just before lunch, our lunch break, we had finished with the testimony of Ms. Airheart. And I think by agreement of counsel, we're going to circle back to Exhibit C. You remember that was Agent Turbett was talking about an interview with Houston Danker, and then that was admitted. And this was the 2021 sometime interview, and we're going to play that video at this point. Before we do, I just want to also say thank you to all of you. You have been so far on time, all the time, and I really appreciate that. If anything, we've kept you waiting on occasion. You've never kept us waiting, and that's not the case all the time with jurors. Sometimes we have stragglers coming in and out, and so just want to say thank you to all of you for being so prompt and being here ready to go when it's time to start every day and after breaks. So thank you for that. All right, with that, we've tried this. We anticipate it's going to work, but we'll give it a go. I can tell you as well.
And follow up with you again. Or did law enforcement like 20? No, I don't know if that works.
It said, like, I can't remember what it said, 40 minutes, but I forgot they opened the 4-lane on.
Just grab a seat. Yeah, actually, if you can grab a seat here, it'd be great. So
Okay.
it's easier for me to write.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to really cut to the chase because social media, I started law enforcement like 25 years ago. We didn't have social media, we didn't have Facebook and all that nonsense. And now that we do, every time something happens, everybody's on the internet.
Yep.
Oh, you should look at this, you should look at that.
Right.
Anyway, why your name came up is Ryan Cooper died.
See, and
Okay, so Ryan Cooper died, and one of the first, I don't know, in the first hour, someone said, hey, we heard that Karina was having an affair with Houston. That's why you're here, okay?
Yeah.
So, all I got to do is I got to sort out a few things with you about that. I'm going to get you out of here, and then we may have to follow up with you again some other time.
Okay.
But the rumor's out there, so we have to talk to you, right?
Yep.
Is it Huston?
Huston, yep.
And your middle name?
William. William.
And
M. W-I.
how do you spell your last name?
Oh. D-A-N-K-E-R.
Your birthday?
9/11/97.
Your address now?
2798. Highway 8. Trera, 50675.
And I didn't have your phone number. You just give me a
319-330-1616. Yeah, like you said, you just kind of called me at the perfect time. I was going
yeah, I was awesome. And where do you work at now?
Nolan Farms in Van Horn.
Nolan Farms.
Rick Nolan, or whatever, whatever you want to put.
What do you do there?
I'm a farmhand.
Okay.
A little bit of everything. We have excavating.
And that's like full-time?
Yeah. Yep.
Monday through Friday, or depending on seasonal?
It seems like we have so much going, so I mean, it seems more 7 days. You know, I have my kids into the weekend, so
I grew up in Belle Plaine, so I'm aware of farm stuff. That's how I'm...
Oh, so you probably know the Nolans then a little bit.
I know a lot of Dankers. I'm like trying to think of...
Yeah, there's a Dave Danker in Belle Plaine.
Oh.
Everybody asks me if I'm related.
I'm quite a bit older than you are, so I don't know. A lot older than you, actually. So,
But yeah, I would just say, fuck. In average, would be 6 days a week.
Okay. All right. So, the rumor that's going around is Ryan or you and Karina were Snapchatting. Did that actually happen at some point?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay. When did that happen?
yeah. I mean, if it's once a week, twice, I mean, it's
Is it still going on?
with me and Karina.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I said, it's random Snapchat shit. I mean,
Okay.
it's maybe.
Is it Karina? Randomly?
Yeah.
And how long has that been going on for?
Oh, shit. I don't know. Probably November, October. Just, yeah, probably October, November time frame.
And you think you said what, once or twice a week?
Yeah, I mean, it's not anything just your typical like I said, Snapchat, random,
Okay, so let's rewind then to how I said I'm a lot older than you.
Yeah.
I have kids. I'm aware of Snapchat. Actually, my daughter is 3 years younger than you. So, what does Snapchat then entail? Is it like almost like texting, something? Like
Just like, oh, you don't have Snapchat?
No.
Oh, just like random picture, like let's say you're sitting on the deck, after a long day of work, take a picture of your beer and long day. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like if I'm, let's say you're planting corn, you take a Snapchat, send it to all your buddies because you want to get them worked up that you're planting corn.
Right. So then you used to get your hair cut there, right?
Yep.
Do you still get your hair cut there or no?
Well, I did when I worked at Liquid Grove just because it was convenient. And then now with me working down in Van Horn, I don't have much time to really get my hair cut.
Mm-hmm.
B, it's not right down the road.
So what I was told, and keep in mind this is sometimes second and third hand through people,
Yep.
is that Ryan found out that you were Snapchatting and she then refused to cut your hair. Did anything like that happen?
No, I mean, like I said, it was more or less a convenience deal of,
Did Ryan never know about you two Snapchatting?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Did she say something to you about it?
No, I mean, we're all kind of like.
Well, keep in mind, okay,
Yeah.
so let me explain things a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we have her phone, okay? We have
Yep.
Ryan's phone.
Yep.
And what we are able to do is we basically are able to clone everything off the phone
Gotcha.
in order to... So any conversation that she's had with you, even if she deleted it, we can still get it. It's like FBI technology stuff. So
Right.
We'll still be able to get that. We'll be able to get locations. We'll be able to get all that kind of
Yep.
data. I mean, the stuff that we can do now as opposed to what we could do back in the 90s with cell phone, it's like, it's unbelievable, really.
Right.
So, there's no point in kind of dance. If you were screwing around with her, or whatever, it doesn't make you a killer or anything
No.
like that, right? Guess what? People have affairs all the time.
Right.
There's not a perfect marriage out there, at least that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Where people don't sometimes do things that they don't regret, whether it's, have an argument that they said something they shouldn't have, or they have an affair, or they, use too many drugs, or drink too much alcohol, or gamble too much. Everybody's got weird shit going on in their life, right? Okay?
Yep.
So, I don't want you to get too nervous about it, because if you had an affair with Karina, it doesn't make you guilty of anything other than you had an affair with her.
Right. Well, and that I'll put it this way. I'll completely dumb it down. So, like,
Right.
with me and Karina, the hard thing with all that rumor being spread is I was literally sitting there like I would say a gay best friend. I was having, me and my baby mama split up. Okay. I was getting my hair cut by Karina, and I have 2 kids. You know,
Right.
she loves kids, whatever, and she always told me, you know, if you're ever in a pinch, hey, you know, I don't have a problem watching your kids, whatever. And so we were all, you know, everybody was friends, whatever. You know, well then, you know, she watched my kids a couple times when I was in a pinch. Well, then it fucking, you know how small towns talk, you know.
Exactly.
Houston's kids are over at Karina's. He's fucking nailing her, you know.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. And I guess that's probably where Ryan probably got upset. You know, I mean, if
Because
he,
you kind of, hey, again, keep in mind, I don't know you. I've
Yeah.
known you for, what, 10 minutes now?
yeah.
But you kind of got a reputation where you're pretty successful with the ladies, right?
I won.
Better luck than some. Or not as bad
Like
as others.
years ago.
Years ago.
I was, yeah, I mean, it's bad to say, but I'm young with 2 kids. You know, I mean, it's
Right.
fucking-
Right.
But,
So the 2 kids from 2 different moms, is that?
no, same mom.
Same mom?
Same mom, yeah.
But
Yep.
you guys aren't married?
No. No.
Right. And how old are your kids?
Hayden, he'll be 2. I suck at doing the whole month deal.
Yeah, you too.
He'll be 2 in October, and then Sailor, she'll be 1.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, they're pretty fucking close together.
That's pretty close.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so your kids are staying over, or Karina would watch them every now and then.
Yeah, I think she watched them a total of 3 times, just because you know
Right.
I got them on the week or during the week, and then obviously I didn't have a place to go, you know, because I don't have daycare.
Mm-hmm. So is it normally then baby's mama that watches them?
Yeah, she's got primary custody. I just got every other week, you know, every other
Okay.
weekend. But see, that was a weird time because none of that was set in stone. So my baby mom at the time would call me fucking randomly and say, "Hey, you got the kids today?" Well,
Well, right, like I said, relationships are complicated, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, and then you kind of met did you meet Karina then just from the hair shop?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's yeah. I've always known Karina. You know, everybody's always known Karina and Ryan because obviously I grew up in Trevor. But that's where she started cutting my hair and bullshit. You know,
Yeah. They're lifers from Trevor too.
Ryan and Karina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually grew up, so I graduated from Belle Plaine. I grew up just north of town in Toledo, from 76 to 86. I lived out there.
Oh,
Yeah. It's changed a little, but not a whole lot since
No.
I lived here.
it's not like Cedar Rapids or Waterloo or something.
No, it's not, but I still feel like it's home here for me. So,
Yep.
so you always knew her. How long were you getting your hair cut there?
I got to think back. You know, I think it was probably when I started working at Liquid Grow. So, fuck. I don't know if it'd be.
Just a
throw
guess.
2 years out there, year and a half. Yeah.
And then the Snapchatting, did that kind of coincide with watching the kids? Or how did
Yeah, that's where that picked up was, you know, there for a while. Karina, she was just my, you know, cut my hair, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I started having kids, and she, you know, I honestly needed fucking help, is what it, you know. And I wasn't telling her,
young.
I wasn't telling her I needed help, but I was kind of, you know.
Right.
And then she offered, and yeah, that's where I would say that's where the chatting started. You know, the friendship, you know.
Mm-hmm. And then you described it as what, you're her gay friend, or how do you describe it?
The best way I could put it is, yeah, just a gay best friend, you know.
Yeah, so,
Like when everybody around Trevor was saying, "Oh, you know, Houston's nailing her," or whatever. I'm sitting there like, "Nope,
so are we gonna, I mean, and I don't know, I mean, if you drink a lot or she drinks a lot, is there, I think back to college, you know, when we would get a little out of hand, like we'd send like a dick pic to somebody or something. Just, is there going to be anything like that between you and Karina, or anything that you're like, well, look, we were friends, but maybe there might be something that the police might think is inappropriate, but we're not going to find anything like that? Okay. I actually got because this is a state phone and the numbers always switch. You know, when I first got this phone, I would have I don't know who this number belonged to. I'd get guys from Fort Dodge calling me all trying to sell me stolen stuff. Oh, yeah. And I'm just like, dude, let me meet you, and then I'd call the police and let them know where they're going to be. But okay. So what was your day like yesterday then?
Oh, got to work typically. Yesterday I got to work about 6:45.
Yeah.
Mowed hay until, I can't remember what time we got done. About, I would say 6:30, 7 o'clock last night is when we finished up.
Where'd you go after that?
Well, I left Van Horn, and naturally, you know, I needed gas, so I ran into Traer.
Mm-hmm.
Got gas in Traer. And then went home and hung out.
And who was home with you last night?
Just, I live by myself.
Okay. Did you go on about any last night, or
After I got gas?
early morning? Yeah.
After I got gas, I just went and looked at a couple farms down by Cloutier. We have a farm down by Cloutier.
What time do you think you went to bed?
Last night? Oh, probably 11:30.
So after
12. Yeah, yeah, I'd say 10:30, 11.
Okay. So we do a thing, it's called a geofence. And what the geofence does, it's a technology thing that I'm not capable of explaining. But say this is Ryan's house and Karina's house.
Yep.
What we do is a geofence, so we'll take the map or whatever and draw like a big box around it. And every phone that travels through that box at a certain time frame gets picked up. And there's this, it's scary if you knew how easily our phones are literally being tracked, whether we want it to or not. So at any point, say like after midnight, or are we going to find your phone in our box?
No.
And then we also are collecting, obviously you've been out there, so it's like a incredibly isolated area. I always call it God's country, right? Because it's great properties out there with all the open space and all that. But what we'll do is we'll go to all the different farms, and there's a lot of farmers get like farm equipment stolen, that sort of thing. So they put cameras up. We're not going to find any of your vehicles or anything on camera from last night, other than where you should be?
Yep.
Okay. Did Karina ever confide in you in anything, like her and Ryan aren't doing so hot, or did she ever complain about anything regarding Ryan? Since you might, if you're the gay friend, sometimes that's who people talk to, right?
See, and it was never like really that, you know, like the gay best friend part pretty much just comes from me and my kids. You know, I mean, not anything.
You're the helpless single dad that needs help every now and then.
That's pretty well kind of the way, yeah.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you seeing someone now, or?
No. My last deal with the girl I had kids with, you know, it fucking kind of burns you. You know,
2 kids and you're not together, so
Well,
that's not hard.
it's the, you know, the child support and everything, you know, and I don't know.
Makes you paranoid for the next one, huh?
Not paranoid, but just kind of, I don't know. I like doing my own deal, I guess. You know, or I don't know what the best way to put it is.
Okay. All right. But hey, you know, I appreciate you coming down as quickly as you did.
Yeah. What time is it?
It's time for you to go.
Oh, about 4. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. Yep.
Any questions for me?
No.
So it's a long process for us. We had, like I said, we had to collect all the phone data and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
We got several rumors that we got to track down right now.
Yeah.
So you're just one of them.
I get that.
Don't feel too special. So
Yeah.
if you don't have any questions for me, let's get you out of here.
No. Cool. You got my phone number and all that?
Oh yeah, I'll call you if I need you.
Yeah. That is perfect. Yeah.
All right. Then with that, is the state prepared to call its next witness? Ms. Williams.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would call Leroy Bradley.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bradley. Come on up and have a seat to my far left, if you would, sir. Mr. Bradley, first thing I'm going to do, sir, is swear you in. If you please raise your right hand. Mr. Bradley, do you swear or affirm, sir, that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Mr. Bradley, next thing is, can you please give us your first and last name and spell them both for us, please?
Leroy Bradley, Leroy, Bradley.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Do you prefer Leroy or Mr. Bradley?
Leroy's fine.
Okay, thank you. Leroy, where do you currently live?
Traer, Iowa.
What's your occupation?
An agronomist for Aurora Agronomy.
What's agronomist? What do you do?
Sell chemical and manage fields for crops.
Okay. And do you know Ryan and Karina Cooper?
Yes.
How do you know Ryan and Karina?
Known Ryan my whole life and Karina since I was young. And I worked with Ryan on a daily basis, working through his farm.
How would you describe your relationship with Ryan?
Close.
Okay.
Good friends.
Did you know Ryan and Karina throughout their marriage?
Yes.
Okay. Leroy, at some point prior to Ryan being killed, did you and Ryan talk about firearms?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall Ryan talking with you about purchasing firearms for Karina?
Yes.
Do you recall what type of firearm he discussed purchasing?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
You recall him discussing purchasing firearms, correct?
Correct.
Did he tell you why he was purchasing a firearm?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
It just goes to state of mind, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Not for the... Did Ryan bring a firearm to show to you?
Yes.
What kind of firearm did he bring to show to you?
22 pistol.
Did he mention whether he had any other firearms at that time?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Did he show you the firearm that he brought?
Yes.
Were you aware of any firearms that were purchased for Karina Cooper?
Yeah, 380, I believe.
Were any other firearms purchased for Karina Cooper?
He purchased.
Objection, Your Honor. This relies on hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer.
He purchased the 22 pistol to teach her how to shoot before he used the 380, or had her shoot the 380.
Were you personally familiar, did you have a personal relationship with Karina Cooper?
Yes.
And during your time knowing Karina and Ryan, were you aware of any, or did you become aware of any conflicts in their relationship?
Outside of the affair he thought she was having, or, I mean, they would, when she would drink, they would argue.
Okay. What kinds of things would they argue about?
Pretty much anything, if she, you know.
Do you recall if they argued about finances?
I know that there was some time there when Karina had run up some credit card bills that the family farm paid for. So I know that there was some.
How did you know this?
Ryan told me.
Did you and Ryan also discuss a possible affair between Houston Danker and Karina?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes, the spring of 21.
So just before Ryan was killed?
Yes, it would have been March or April there.
Do you know or have any knowledge of whether Ryan confronted Karina about that affair?
I know yes, he told me he had confronted
Objection,
her.
Your Honor, hearsay. I move to strike the answer.
Sustained. The answer will be stricken, and the jury shall disregard whatever it heard with respect to the answer.
Did you observe any behavior exhibited by Karina towards Ryan?
Not physically, but she would verbally go after him pretty hard.
When you say she would verbally go after him, what would that mean, or what would that look like?
Oh, I mean, just verbally calling him names or saying he's stupid, or, I mean, just when she started drinking, she could get pretty ornery.
How would Ryan respond?
Usually just get quiet.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Ms. Watt, cross-examination.
No questions. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir. You may step down. Mr. Ringel, looks like you've got the mic now. Is the state prepared to call the next witness?
Yes, Judge, thank you. The state would call Teresa McBride.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Have you come on up here to my far left, if you would? That chair right there. Okay. Yep, set your purse down. Go ahead and have a seat. And then that microphone is on. You can adjust it kind of however you'd like, ma'am. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to swear you in, so I'm going to ask that you raise your right hand. So, ma'am, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. And next thing, can you just give us your first name and your last name and spell them for us, please?
Sure. Teresa McBride, Teresa McBride.
All right, thank you. Mr. Engel.
Good afternoon, Ms. McBride. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone just a little bit closer to you.
Sure. Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you. Where do you live, Ms. McBride?
North of Independence?
Is that close to Traer or the Traer community?
No.
Okay.
About an hour and 15 minutes.
All right. Did you live in or around Traer around 2021?
Yes, I did. I lived in Traer from 2019 until the fall of 2023.
Did you know Karina and Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I did.
How did you know them?
I met them through Brian Morrison, who I was dating at the time.
What's the nature of your relationship with Ryan and Karina?
They were friends of Brian's, and they became friends of mine.
So when you say you're friends, what kind of stuff were you guys doing? Could you describe the relationship?
Oh, we went on, we did a lot of camping together, went up north and went snowmobiling, get together in the shop for social gatherings, either at their place or other friends in Traer area.
How often?
Pretty on a regular basis. We were somewhere either some night during the week or maybe throughout the weekends. Sometime, depending on the time of the season, if it was harvest or planting, we may not see Ryan as much and Karina, but we usually tried to get together.
Because presumably Ryan was busy with work in the fields, is that correct?
Yes.
Were you close with Karina?
We had gotten close throughout the years, probably not as close as some of the other friends in the area because I was kind of a transplant.
Okay. What do you mean by that? You were a transplant?
I wasn't originally from there. I grew up in the Independence area, and then when Brian and I started dating, I moved to that location in 2019.
You talked a little bit about the different things you would do together. It sounds like you were seeing them at least once a week, maybe a little bit more, going on some trips. How long would you say that relationship lasted?
I would say probably up until maybe the spring of 2021. Sorry. Then things kind of started to fizzle away. We didn't get together as much, it seemed like. But then after Ryan's passing, we started getting together a little bit more frequently. We were doing some girl trip things. But then that kind of phased away as well, too, once I left.
So you were spending some time with Karina following Ryan's death, right?
Yes.
When you're spending time, it sounds like, with both Ryan and Karina, did you have an opportunity to observe their relationship and their relationship dynamic?
Yes.
How would you describe that relationship dynamic?
They had good and not so good times.
And did you ever observe any instances in which Karina and Ryan argued?
Several.
When you say several, what do you mean?
Well, it seemed like a lot of times when we would go camping, something would get said or something wouldn't get done, and she would get upset and it would cause a fight. Or if we were at someone's shop or at their shop, something would get said, and I don't know what those things were, but it seemed like she might get a little upset more than you would expect someone to get upset.
Okay. And you mentioned, and some other people have mentioned, getting together in people's shops. What does that mean?
Well, it was kind of a Traer thing, I guess. Every shop had a bar.
Okay.
And so, you just get together, for a couple of cocktails or drinks just to see how everybody's week's going, or if people are having a bad day, hey, let's get together and have a couple. It was just a common thing.
And so when you say a shop, do you mean an outbuilding on a farm property typically?
Not necessarily on a farm property, but there was some in town. People had nice, glamorous shops or garages or, but it could be on both a farm or in town.
All right. So you said that occasionally you would see Karina Cooper getting upset with Ryan, perhaps more than you would expect. What was Ryan's reaction typically, if there was a typical reaction?
He would just kind of back away. He didn't really engage much. would put his head down or maybe just leave just because he didn't want to have to deal with the confrontation.
So you knew Ryan pretty well. How would you describe his personality generally?
He'd give you the shirt off his back if that was all he had left.
Did you or do you know someone by the name of Houston Danker?
I know of him. I wasn't close with him.
At some point, did you become aware of an affair between Houston Danker and Karina Cooper?
I heard a lot of talk of it.
Did you have any personal knowledge of that?
No.
Ryan was killed in June of 2021. Did you see any changes or note any changes in Karina's behavior leading up to Ryan's death?
She kind of got a little quieter, maybe wasn't getting involved with activities, losing a lot of weight to the point where it was almost concerning, like maybe there was some sort of underlying health issue. Just not the Karina I once knew.
You had stated that you observed a number of different potential arguments during which Karina would yell at Ryan, and Ryan's reaction was essentially calm. Were you aware of the topics or the nature of those disagreements or what was upsetting her?
I think a lot of it came down to money. Karina liked to redecorate and remodel, and I think that a lot of times she needed some of Ryan's help financially to do those things, and Ryan was kind of the voice of reason. Is it something that we really need to do right now? Is it something that can wait? Or, how much is it going to cost? So he was always trying to do the analytics of whatever endeavor she was taking on.
So when that would happen, and the conversations were about money, there were these sort of, as you said, Ryan's reaction was somewhat analytical. What was her reaction to his analysis?
A lot of times she'd get upset because he didn't agree with the projects that she wanted to tackle.
And what did that look like when she got upset about those types of things?
Sometimes she would yell at him and say things about why she couldn't have the money or that she hated him, and then that was usually time to leave. Like if we were around that environment, that was a sign to go.
How would you characterize how you were feeling then in response to what you were observing?
How I was feeling?
Yes.
Uncomfortable.
Did it seem funny to you or like joking around?
Well, it got to the point where she made those comments so frequently that a lot of us just took it with a grain of salt. It's like, oh, it's Karina. We didn't take it out of context.
Okay. Nonetheless, you said, if I understand correctly, that it would reach a point where you were uncomfortable and it was time to go. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between those two things that you just described? How did you know when it was time to go?
Well, when she started yelling at Ryan and would say things like she hated him and, just vulgar stuff towards him, it just became uncomfortable and no fun to be around.
How often did you see her yelling at Ryan in that way?
More so when we'd been probably drinking. And it just depended on the time of the year, if we were around them.
You said it happened so often that it became just sort of normal?
Yes.
Did you ever see her or hear her make any threats towards Ryan?
Yes, I did.
How many times?
Well, the one that stands out in my mind is the night that she yelled at him and said that she fucking hated him and would shoot him in the face.
When she yelled at him and said she would shoot him in the face, how would you characterize her behavior in the way that she said it?
Well, at that point, we're like, oh boy, time to go. We've all had enough. And so, and like before, didn't take it out of context. It was just Karina getting angry, and we just decided it was time to leave.
Is that in fact what you did?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Ms. Watt, cross-examination.
Thank you. We've heard a lot of testimony about the times that Ryan and Karina would fight. I have to imagine there were good times.
Yes, there were. Yes.
So you guys did have a lot of fun together over the years.
Yes.
And I thought did some people or yourself call her Karen when she was drinking?
I don't know that I ever called her Karen. I just knew better.
Okay.
But yes, I had heard that, yes.
Okay. So people in the friend group were well aware that Karina can be not the nicest person sometimes, and that was her personality.
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds like Ryan, sometimes opposites. Ryan's more the non-confrontational kind.
Yes.
Now, you've testified today that you felt like sometimes Karina would go over the top, and I understand that. But do you remember when we talked in April of 2024 in a different room?
Yes.
And do you recall at that time saying that you didn't think it was anything normal couples don't do?
I do recall saying that, yes.
Okay.
But since then, my mind has been like circling back, like, are there things that I missed or that I didn't say, because this was not on my bucket list to be in this situation.
Right.
And so there were times that, I thought, I didn't understand why she got so angry over the little things. Mm-hmm. But maybe that is her personality. It's just not mine.
Okay. Yes, I think you also did say that she might yell and you wouldn't yell the same way because you're a bit softer.
A lot, yes. Yes.
I also understand that hindsight is 20/20, and it's easy sometimes to look back at a situation through a different lens. Mm-hmm. Fair?
Yes.
The comment about, find it back here. Let me be clear. Did you ever see Karina act violent towards Ryan, though?
Not physically.
Right. Okay. So lots of yelling.
Lots of yelling, yes.
And then the comment of, I should shoot you in the face. Do you know when that happened?
Well, I was going back in the old photo bank, and there was a picture taken of Cortland and I. And I'm not 100% positive, but that was taken back in October of 2018.
Okay.
And I am almost positive it was the same night. I don't know the exact night, but I know Ryan was around, and it was early to mid-evening, so I knew they weren't out during harvest season.
Okay.
Or something had happened that they couldn't be out harvesting. So I know it was that certain time of the year.
I understand. So, but regardless, you think that comment was made in 2018 then?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Engel, any redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Mr. Kodiaga?
First, let me just check for next witnesses here.
All right. Sounds good. If anybody wants to stretch, now's your chance.